Hi, welcome back. Okay, so we have the artichokes are boiling. You want to keep an eye on them because you want them boiling, but you don't want them boiling so rapidly that it's going to cook them. It's going to just evaporate the water before they're really cooked. So because they're going to take anywhere between like 30, 45 minutes, depending on how tough they are. So I'm just keeping an eye on the water level and making sure that it goes up to about 1/3 to 1/2, but no less than 1/4. All right, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to start making the cheese component of our bruschetta. So we're going to do the beet bruschetta, and we've got the beets cooking. And actually, let's take a peek on there. I wonder how much time is left on that hour for that. And then let's see for the beets. I'm going to just test the beets. Let's take a peek here. So I'm going to test the beets to see. No, they're still pretty hard. The beets are still pretty hard, but we can start to make the cheese component for it, the cheese spread. Like I said, the beets are just on their own time. They could take 30 minutes, they could take 45 minutes, they can take an hour. Sometimes they take even longer. They're ready when they're ready. So if you could make them the day before, which makes it a lot easier for you, you could always cook the beets the day before and then peel them and chill them. So let them get to room temperature first. Let them sit out and get to room temperature first. And then you're going to refrigerate them if you do them the day before. Okay. So we're going to get our ingredients for the cheese component of the bruschetta. Let's see how these guys are doing too. Let me check on the figs. You could stir the figs around every now and again, and you could see how they're starting to plump up a little bit, which is great. It helps them tenderize and soften up a bit. Okay, so we're going to have those there. And then we're going to make the cheese component. So we have our food processor. Let's pull this out a little bit. Oh my goodness. Okay. And we have the food processor. Yeah. Truth be told, I almost never use a food processor. I mash everything by hand. But this one works a lot better with the food processor. So we're going to put our goat cheese in there. We have 8 ounces. Oh, you know what I forgot to tell you? I forgot to tell you about when you're making everything in this dish tonight could be vegan if you want to make it completely dairy free. Instead of using the Pecorino Romano cheese or the Parmigiano Reggiano, there are fabulous plant-based grated Parmesan cheeses now. There's Violife. There's another one called Dreamfields that we're using. And the Violife is amazing. It tastes just like the Parmesan cheese. And we're using it a lot. So you could always switch to do that if you want as well. In particular, if you have someone who wants a plant-based diet. And if you just want to avoid the cholesterol. Okay, so we're going to put, now as far as this goes, we're using goat cheese. But again, there are vegan plant-based varieties. Almost every grocery store has them. Especially the larger grocery stores. But if you go to a small family-owned grocery store, I know I go to the one in Brantford, I go to Karen's Corner a lot. They're good about bringing things in. If you say, gee, I'd buy this if you bring it in, they're pretty good about bringing things in. So just ask for it if you want. And then you could support your family-owned stores. Okay, so we have our goat cheese that we're putting in here. And then we're, of course.
What are the figs soaking in?
They're soaking in the fresh orange juice.
How much fresh orange juice?
1 cup.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 1 cup of orange juice. And they're just soaking in there. And then we're going to actually later on, we're going to reserve the orange juice. We're going to take them out and we're going to put them in a plate, a baking dish, because we've already preheated our oven to 350 degrees. And we're going to stuff them and then bake them in the orange juice as well. So it doesn't go to waste. Okay, so we're going to put a little bit of heavy cream. And again, you can use oat milk. You can use a vegan plant-based heavy cream, and they make those as well. And then we're going to put a little tiny bit of snipped chives. If you don't have chives, you can use finely minced onion, and that's fine. Or you can use scallions as well. And then we're just going to put a couple of leaves of basil. I'm gonna miss going on my deck, getting the basil and the herbs when winter sets in. I've never had much luck making them, growing them inside, but maybe I could try again. Okay, so we have that. We're gonna put a little tiny bit of salt and pepper. And we're using 8 ounces of the goat cheese. And let's get a little bit of salt in there. Okay, and then we're going to just process it. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, sorry about that. Let me get. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to get help. Okay, let's try. Hang on one second. I have it wrong. Like I told you, I never ever use this. Okay, perfect. I always do it in my blender or by hand. All right, so we're just gonna let that go and let that blend up a little bit because we're making a spread for our crostini. Okay, it goes very quickly. And you have, oh yeah, it's nice and creamy. Let's do this. And this is what it looks like. And you're just making a creamy goat cheese spread. Okay, so I want to take a peek here. I just want to check on the artichokes. And they're really cooking nicely. And you can tell the color starts turning a little tiny bit. They get a little brighter green as you're cooking them, as they're steaming. And that gives you an idea of how they're softening as well. But we're going to be waiting until the leaves are nice and tender. So that's going to take a while. And these beets are going to be a little problem. But if they don't cook on time, I cooked 2 yesterday, just in case. And those took over an hour because they're gigantic. All right. So now we have our crostini. We have our just toasted bread. And what I did was, now if you're going to broil it, which is what the recipe calls for, it takes like barely a minute. Do not leave your oven. I burned more crostini by thinking I can run and grab something while I'm waiting, but you can't. So you need to literally like set your timer on your oven and get them done. Now, I like having crostini in the house, and actually my brothers adore it, especially my brother Jimmy. It's the first thing he does when he comes in the house is look for that and nuts. But my mom always kept a basket of the crostini, and crostini is just basically toasted bread, and bruschetta is the topping. So when you put the topping on it, you have a bruschetta, but the bottom part is the crostini, the toasted bread. My mom always kept a basket with a dinner napkin lined basket on top of the refrigerator. And she would use these little toasts in the morning, sometimes for apricot preserves. On really fancy times, she would do ricotta cheese, and she would make a beautiful peach puree for the summer, or an apricot puree. And by doing that, she would just blanch the peaches and then literally cut them and cook them with a tiny, tiny bit of water and then mash it with a potato masher. And that is wonderful. And then you just cool it down and keep it in your refrigerator. But we often had that with the crostini. Or when you come home, you could just put some butter on it and have it like a toast. So it's nice to have in the house. So we have those ready. You could use whole wheat bread. You could use a ciabatta. You could use just plain old narciscos or apicellas, Italian bread, or whatever Italian bread you use. And just cut your slices and then you toast them. So what we're going to do is we have our filling all ready for that. So let's take a look. Hey, Google, how much more time on the timer?
There's 23 minutes and 41 seconds remaining.
Okay.